What's good? What's good? What's good? Welcome to the Caribtons. To start off with this video, I'm going to be starting off a little slight and just tell you guys about my story of being deaf. You're probably wondering, dude, what is deaf? Deaf is technically hearing loss, and it could be caused by many things such as diseases, head trauma, infections, and all that stuff. For me, I was actually born with it. So I'm going to be telling you guys from the moment I was, well, not the moment, but just sit back and listen to my story. So when I was born, I wasn't actually born completely deaf. I was actually born somewhat deaf, meaning that I could hear a little bit, but not very good. So obviously you can't really identify when a baby is deaf just by looking at it, when they're fresh out of the womb. So it wasn't about until I was 3 years old when my parents found out that I was deaf. And basically they sort of found out when they was trying to talk to me and I wasn't responding to them. And by the way, I barely talked. It wasn't like I maybe made noises. I just barely talked. So that's when they figured out that maybe there was something wrong. Took me to the doctor and then boom, figured out I was profound deaf. You're probably wondering, how did you become deaf? How does that work? Is there a cure to it? The answer to that is how I became deaf. I don't know. Is there a cure? Kinda, but permanently, no. Let me go into a little doctor mode for you all and basically tell you guys how it works. Sound goes into your ear, right? And it hits the eardrum. Eardrum then creates this vibration in your ears. And that vibration gets picked up inside your cochlea, which is basically this circular thing inside your ear. And inside the cochlea, it's basically a tube. Inside the cochlea has a bunch of hairs. And that hairs pick up their vibrations. And the vibration then is being triggered by your cochlear nerve. And that will generate a sound, just like. So in my situation, the hairs in the cochlea is actually damaged. So it's not going to pick up any sort of vibration, which is going to trigger the nerve. So therefore, I'm cochlear impaired. So it wasn't actually until I was 4 years old when I got my first hearing aid. And let me tell you about that hearing aid. It was horrible. The rubber piece of the hearing aid was like stabbing in my ear. Let me get it for you actually. This thing right here. I'm sure many of you OGs can remember this thing. This was terrible. This rubber piece right here was like stabbing in my ear. It's like a needle in my ear. And I remember my audiologist basically grab a drill and just it was just funny. I don't know if this can fit in my ear. What size is it actually? Oh, and if you guys can see, oh wow, that felt so weird. I felt no hearing whatsoever. So these things did work for a period amount of time, but it was still, remember, I was somewhat deaf, but this was still not giving me any sort of, volume, I don't know what you call it, volume whatsoever. So I did wear this for, probably a year, and then we then discovered that it wasn't really working well. I had both sides, and it wasn't working. And that's when my audiologist said, it's time for cochlear implants. Now, if you wonder, what is cochlear implants? These things I'm wearing right now. These will look similar to it, except it doesn't have a rubber and it has a magnet. So to get these cochlear implants, and by the way, these are for when you're completely deaf. I'm not completely deaf. I may have been in one of my ears, but I'm not completely deaf. So what they had to do was somehow make me completely deaf, and the only way to do that was during the surgery. So I was about maybe 5 years old when I had the surgery. And this was probably just before or maybe around the time I started preschool. So yeah, I was pretty young. Yo, I was scared on the day of my surgery. I didn't know what was going on, by the way. But I was scared when the nurses took me to the OR room. And I didn't remember exactly what the OR room was. All I remember, it was just blue. That's all. It was just blue. And I remember they basically told me about this mask of, I think, anesthetic, I don't know. But they basically told me to smell into it. By the way, I was still able to hear. They basically told me to smell into it and it smelled like strawberry. That's the last thing I remember before I was knocked out and then I woke up in the hospital bed. So I'm not going to do the whole depth of how the surgery goes. But by the way, this might be different for other hospitals or other countries. But they make an incision behind your ear. And they do a couple more incisions until they reach the cochlea. Then they make another incision going upwards. And then what they did is that they placed this little magnetic piece, probably this small, not that big, but you know what I mean. And then that metal piece had like a electric tube that basically goes in the cochlear, and remember the cochlear is like a tube, so they basically put this metal electric tube inside the cochlear, wrap it around, and then stitch it back together. It's pretty much how it goes. That metal piece I was talking about, that's what holds the metal thing on my head. A lot of people call me a freak for having a metal head. Metal head. Which is kind of true, but I don't really mind. It's kind of cool. Like, if you give me a paper clip, I can probably stick it to my head. So the surgery usually takes about 4 to 5 hours. I don't know if I had the 2 surgeries at the same day, because I have 2 of them, right? I don't know if I had them at the same day. I asked my parents, and one of them said I had one on one of the days, and then a year later I had one, and then one of them said I had 2 of them on the same day. Do you guys seriously not remember? It's a surgery. Like, what? But then I also don't remember a second surgery, so, and surgeries are pretty memorable. I don't remember. And then after that,
Here we go again.